to episode 364 of Good Luck High Five.
That's right. You're listening to a podcast that's for you if you play Magic the Gathering, whether you're sitting at home jamming some arena or heading out this very weekend to your local game store for a pre-release.
I'm one of your hosts, Maria.
I'm another one of your hosts, Megan.
And on today's show, it's always one of our most popular shows. We've got Judge Rob in the house to give us an update on Theros Beyond Death, rules, card interactions, tricky, weird stuff on cards. He's going to have you covered for your pre-release coming up this weekend.
That's right. But before we jump into it, we have a couple of people to thank, most namely you, if you are a patron of this show. Thank you 1 billion times over. And we mentioned last week, I said I would sew tote bags for the first 5 people to join at $10.
Yes, $10
and there were
a
some
month.
people who bumped up to $10 a month, and I counted that.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining or upping your pledges to Jimmy, Anthony, Ryan, Edern, sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, Gabby, and David.
Yay!
Thank you all so much. And you will have those tote bags as fast as my little hands can sew them.
Yeah, Megan's got little mouse hands.
Especially when I sew. Actually, my sewing speed is limited by the fact that I've been meaning to get a new sewing machine for like a while now.
Yeah.
But that's a big investment. So I just keep sewing on the one that I have, which is quite old. And the motor is slowly dying. And so it goes slower and slower every time I use it. It cannot go very fast. I'm like flooring it on my sewing machine because it has a little pedal.
Flooring it?
I'm flooring it in the sewing machine
ma'am,
world.
do you know how fast you were going? I had to pull you over. You're flooring your sewing machine in your house.
But I was not going that fast.
Well, you should pedal to the metal. You know what I mean?
So anyways, I look forward to sending you all your tote bags.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
even if you didn't get a tote bag, please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/GLHFmagic. For as little as $1 a month, you can join our club, or $1.25 a week will get you into our squirrel level, and you get access to our Discord server.
Yeah.
And the ability to challenge Megan and I on Arena coming up tomorrow.
That's right.
So for you listening, let me think about how this goes.
Wait, that's today.
That's today. Tuesday,
For people listening.
For people listening, today, the 14th, I will be streaming.
Yes.
Starting at noon, and you can challenge me in any format of your choosing. Wednesday, we're going to be doing a special Theros early access stream.
Yeah.
Which will be really fun, playing with Theros before anybody else on Arena. And Thursday, you can challenge Megan.
That's right.
Starting at 6 p.m. Central. And if you want to challenge us, just head into the Arena Tag channel of the Discord with your username and what format you want to challenge us in, or reply to the post that we put up there on Patreon.
Yep. And you can always be there the day of the stream if you're watching and are a patron, and then drop a message in the Discord the very day of, and we'll get you in there.
Go follow twitch.tv/GLHFmagic if you want to hang out and challenge us, or just watch the streams, because we love having people just hanging out and chat. It'll be really fun.
Yeah. Also, thank you so much to our sponsor, Card Kingdom. CardKingdom.com/GLHFmagic, the place to go for all of your Theros Beyond Death needs.
That's right. Do you want a booster box to draft with your friends? Do you want to start thinking about singles? Do you need sleeves for your pre-release? Do you need play mats, deck boxes, whatever you need?
What do you need in your Magic afterlife?
I like it. Use those chains from the Underworld for good. And head to cardkingdom.com/GLHF. That's the affiliate link to use for anything you want to buy. Ask for a Maria and Megan token or sticker. They'll put one in your order for free.
All right.
By the way, Theros on Arena on Thursday.
Dang, kids.
So, Wednesday.
Get ready.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty sweet.
Oh no. I'm so excited.
Oh no, I'm so excited. All right, everybody, it's time to welcome in very special guest Judge Rob in here to help us out with Theros Beyond Death.
Hi.
Hi, Judge Rob. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
You know what? I just flew in from GP Austin, and boy, are my legs tired.
The seats were pretty cramped.
Yeah.
Same here. I likewise just flew in from the Star City Games Open in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I was head judge. And so we were on opposite modern tournaments.
That's true.
Yes.
So our top 8 had Yawgmoth defeating Urza twice.
That's pretty sweet. I like that new Yawgmoth deck, by the way. It's pretty cool.
It's very difficult to play.
And will we see more of it now that Urza is he's still around.
I mean, he's here, but
some of his necessary friends have gotten the
true.
boot.
Some of his support pieces have definitely been, kicked to the curb.
Judge Rob, what are you reading today?
Oh, I was reading With the Tangled Skein, which is so Piers Anthony.
Oh, I thought it said Tangled Skin, and I was really off it.
Wow.
Oh,
That would be way.
yeah, that'd be a little bit different.
You've got to look at the
spookier.
art, though, if you're
Yeah.
watching the video. It's very nice.
Yeah. So it's book 3 of a very surreal series by Piers Anthony. There's these incarnations that are jobs. So fate is a job, death is a job, war is a job, and people take up the role.
Oh.
And
cool.
so in this fantasy universe, and so, but it's set on something pretty analogous to normal Earth.
That's pretty cool.
And
I
so
like it.
The cover
Yeah.
is. I was gonna be like, is it kind of witchy? Because the cover is pretty witchy.
yeah, but it's spidery. She's fate.
Yes.
She weaves the threads of fate, and
Nice.
it's actually 3 women that share a body in his.
What?
And so yeah, this is probably the 3rd best of the books in the series after War and Death.
All right.
So
Fair enough.
it's not like amazing high prose, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Nice.
I set it over there.
Okay, so Rob, you usually start off our cool pre-release episodes. We're going to get into card interaction, mechanics, that kind of thing in just a second with a nice little PSA.
Yeah, my PSA is partially inspired by me flying back from Knoxville and realizing I left my charger for my laptop in the hotel room. So you're going to be going to a pre-release this weekend. You're going to bring some stuff. You're going to bring snacks, deck box, drinks, whatever. Pay attention to it. This is the stuff rule that you might hear sometimes from people is you care about your stuff. Your friends care less about it because they probably don't have to replace it. So if you leave your bag with a friend, they might wander away from it because it's not theirs and they don't remember it's theirs. Pay attention to your stuff. Also, if your friends ask you to pay attention to their stuff, be mindful that you won't automatically consider it as valuable to you as your stuff. So be aware to not forget your friends' stuff if they ask you to watch their things or whatever. Stores are going to do their best to get things back to you. Judges will do their best to get things back to you. But stuff gets lost if you don't pay attention to it. And I like to make sure we returned a cell phone and a wallet this weekend at Knoxville. And so
Those are important stuff.
yes, they were important stuff. And so people misplace things all the time. I just want to help people not get their weekend ruined by losing their cell phone.
Great
'Cause I know
thought,
that would wreck
Rob.
my weekend.
Do
Pretty
you
bad.
know what? I have been doing really well for a very long stretch. And then in the last couple of months, I left 2 different cell phone chargers. First time in that I can remember ever that I've left a cell phone charger. Did it back to back.
Wow, back to back.
Back to back. And then I left my phone on a plane. I had like a real spate of just not remembering.
Do you want to know that I've left boggles behind on 2 separate occasions?
Maria,
Twice.
you love them,
I
and
love
yet
them.
you leave them behind.
And they're foil. And
Yes.
I left them behind. And thankfully, Magic players are usually very kind-hearted and they've been returned to me both times.
Yep. And as a related thing to that, if you're going to a big event, if you're going to a store that you don't go to often, if you are just going to a store and you know there's going to be a bunch of people who are only there for pre-releases, tag your stuff in some way. Even if you just take a basic planes and write your contact info on it and tuck it in the back of your deck box.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like just something. I keep a copy of my business card in my deck box so that, if it gets lost and returned to Lost and Found, they'll open it up and they'll look through it and they'll go, it's got somebody's name on it. Should we call them up to the desk to get their thing?
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Smart.
So that helps it get back into my hands. Some people are charitably not nice people and they'll just keep it. But a very large proportion of people return things. I have definitely had people Lost and Found bring up like a legacy deck and give it to us. I'm like, you could have walked away with this. Yep. This is a car. And, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Speaking of more anecdotes from my personal life,
Let's
on
hear it.
Thursday, someone hit my parked car and drove away. Anyways,
So sad.
that's all.
Gosh darn it, people.
Speaking of things that are a car,
What
and
you
that
gotta
people
do?
and
What
that
you
people
gotta
walk away
do?
from, it was my car, and someone walked away from it.
Gosh
Anyways,
darn it.
Like I
Yeah.
said, it was a week. Anyways,
Yeah.
cards, Theros.
Cards, Theros. So, welcome back to Theros.
Yay!
We're so excited.
Yes.
I am simultaneously excited and like when I look at the set, this is not the Theros that I remember.
That's very true.
Oh, what do you mean?
So the previous Theros was they tend to cycle power up and down over different sets and blocks, and so they'll tend to have like a super powerful block and then a less powerful block, right?
Yeah.
And Theros was on the receiving end of the less powerful block. They also goofed up and didn't put Constellation in Theros proper. They, held on to it until
Journey.
Until Journey.
to
Yeah.
Nyx, yeah.
And so, like, everybody's like, well, why can't we get triggers for enchantments coming out? Which is like, we must have forgotten it. And they're, we're not idiots. You left it out for a reason. Can you tell us why? No, we can't. Thanks, Wizards. But they did put it in this set. So,
Yes.
talking about returning mechanics, we have Constellation.
Oh, I love Constellation.
Yeah. So Constellation is an ability word. It's an italicized word that doesn't mean anything on its own. Every card with Constellation has whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, do a thing. They're all permanents, and they all trigger when enchantments come out. In the previous Theros, everything with Constellation was an enchantment, so it triggered itself. In Theros Beyond Death, none of the things with Constellation are enchantments.
Interesting.
Wow.
I went and looked at it. I was like, I want to see something trigger itself. And I was like, oh, there's none of those. So everything just basically doesn't do anything when it comes out for the constellations. So when we look at like Utopia, the twice favored here, Utopia is a 2/2 for blue, green, and 1. Legendary creature, human, wizard. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains flying until end of turn.
Nice.
Really good. Utopia triggers when other enchantments come out. If the enchantment is itself a creature, it'll be on the battlefield for this. So if you play a enchantment creature with Utopia out, it'll trigger Utopia. You can put the counter on that thing and give it flying until end of turn.
Ooh.
Which
Okay. That's
so,
good to know.
So it's out by the time that happens.
Okay.
The other big returning is Devotion.
Oh, I also love
Yes.
Devotion.
Devotion's so
I love
great.
both
They-
these mechanics.
Yes, they brought back the things that people liked.
Except
yeah.
heroic.
Oh, there
Kind
are
of,
heroic. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know why they don't have the heroic ability word on the heroic
Maybe
cards.
they have a certain number and they're like, we can only put, X number of mechanics into a set officially.
No, that's. I mean,
I honestly
that's
don't know
true,
why,
but not
but-
true. Yeah, like they should just say heroic and then have the thing. But even though they're all exactly the same, that's the other thing about
That
the
is
new
true.
heroics.
They are all heroic.
So,
The same way.
devotion is is a number. It's a way to reference a number. That number is the number of mana symbols you have on permanents of a given type. So, Anax Hardened in the Forge, red, and 1 for a star 3. Legendary enchantment creature Demigod, which is a new card
Nice.
type or creature
Yeah.
type. Anax's power is equal to your devotion to red. Each red in the mana costs of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to red. Anytime you see a mana symbol in the upper right of a card, if it has a red anywhere on it, it counts towards your devotion to red. So hybrid red-white counts towards devotion to red. The thing with devotion is it's just a way to calculate a value. So anything that refers to devotion uses it to do something else. And some of these things are like Anax, which is a continuous effect. He recalculates all the time when other stuff is happening, when things leave the battlefield. Some of them happen as a one shot exactly when their effect happens. So for instance, Klothys' design is green and 5 for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. At the time the design resolves, you figure out how much devotion you have at that point, apply the effect, and you're done.
So you can respond by killing something to
Yep.
lower the devotion.
Yep, you definitely can lower their devotion, and then it messes it up. And then even if after Klothys' design resolves, you cast another creature with a green mana symbol, that number was locked in already.
Right.
And so that number isn't going to vary later in the turn. I also wanted to mention one other thing about Anax, because while I'm here, he has another ability. Whenever Anax or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. If the creature that died had power 4 or greater, create 2 of those tokens instead. So Anax, when something dies, he looks back to how it last was on the battlefield. So he counts the devotion for himself. So if you have Anax and then another thing that costs red, and then Anax dies, he had 4 power when he left. And that was the last power that he had on the battlefield. So you get 2 tokens from him.
Oh, wild. Okay.
So It's actually pretty likely that he'll leave behind 2 guys.
2 friends.
Yep, 2 friends.
Thanks, Annex.
Yep. The gods are the absolute top end of the devotion cards.
Also love them.
Yes.
They're also coming back.
Yeah, but only 5. Well, 6, 7 of them.
There were 10 before, right?
15.
Oh wow.
There was
Yeah.
15 before?
Wow.
Yeah, every 2-color combination, right?
That's
Holy cow,
right.
yeah,
Right?
you're right.
And so there were gods for every monocolor and every 2 colors. That's 15, right?
But did we see all of them?
Yeah, we saw because each set had 5 gods in it for the whole block.
You're right.
And then
wow.
in Journey to Nyx, occasionally you could open a booster pack that had all 15 gods.
That's
instead of,
right.
Fun.
Okay.
And
I opened an Erebos because we had to practice for the team series drafts. And we didn't have enough time to really draft or do anything. But I did crack a few packs. Got Erebos. Nice.
Very nice. So Nylea the Keen-Eyed is a god. Green and 3 for a 5/6 legendary enchantment creature god. Indestructible. As long as your devotion to green is less than 5, Nylea isn't a creature. Creature spells you cast cost 1 mana less to cast. Green and 2 reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it into your graveyard. So all the gods have they are enchantments all the time, and sometimes they also get animated into being creatures. But in all zones other than the battlefield, they're always creatures. So I was going to use Nylea as an example. If you activate Nylea's green and 2 ability and reveal a Nylea on the top of your library, you can put a Nylea into your hand, even if you don't have enough devotion to turn it on.
Yeah.
Because Nylea only de-animates herself while she's on the battlefield.
That is a bizarre sentence. That's like Data putting himself to sleep.
Yep. And so she'll de-animate. And on the stack, so if you have a Nylea the Keen-Eyed and you're trying to cast another Nylea for whatever reason, Nylea will discount the Nylea the Keen-Eyed on the stack. It's a creature spell, and it can get countered by things that counter only creature spells.
Okay.
Yeah.
No matter how many green mana symbols you have on your permanents. Sagas are back as well.
Oh,
this is
amazing.
weird.
Gosh,
Like
I love sagas.
I love them too, but they're like, oh, this makes perfect sense for them to be here because this is a land of myth and legend. But
Yeah.
is it kind of everywhere a land of myth and legend?
Yes.
So-
But especially Theros.
Especially Theros.
Yeah.
And they get to all be like urns and shields and stuff as their art, which means that they get really, really neat art that we wouldn't get otherwise. So like the Triumph of Anax here, it's red and 2 for an enchantment saga with a very strange frame. It's got the art on one side and it has the text all on the other. It reminds you as this saga enters and as after your draw step, add a lore counter. Sacrifice after, in this case, 4. I wanted to point out, if you remember sagas from before, they only had 3 stages,
Chapters.
3 chapters, and then they were all different from each other. Well, not all different from each other on every previous saga, but
Yeah.
now we have a lot of oddball sagas, like the Triumph of Anax, which chapters 1, 2, and 3 are Anax gets angry. Until end of turn, target creature gets trample and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of lore counters in the Triumph of Anax.
Ooh.
So he gets progressively, whatever creature gets progressively angrier.
Spicy.
And then chapter 4, target creature you control fights up to 1 target creature you don't control.
Great.
Nice.
And so,
play it.
Yep, I will get angrier and angrier and angrier until I decide to punch you in the face.
I gotta say though, reading a book with the same first 3 chapters has got to be a bizarre experience.
So
Chapter 4 is different, but not the first 3.
no, the first 3 are just the same thing.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
just like you're reading the same
The
chapter,
exact same.
but you're not rereading it. They just printed
They
it
just
three
printed it
times.
3 times.
This sounds like a weird art book. Like, have you read On a Winter's Night a Traveler?
No.
Oh, it's a book about going to the bookstore and looking for a book called On a Winter's Night a Traveler, and you get it,
Whoa.
and you find out that when you start reading it, that it isn't at all about what the topic you were told the book was about, and instead about a person who goes to a bookstore to find a book and gets a book.
Or like how the book
Bookception.
version
Yeah.
of The Princess Bride
Yes.
is referencing a lot of times like about his grandfather reading him the book, and it turns out that his grandfather was cutting out all of this like really boring chapters about like
Yes.
policy and politics.
Yeah, it's like there was apparently 3 chapters about this person bringing all their hats along.
Yes.
Like,
exactly.
but that book's all fictitious, right? So you made up a
maybe.
fake bad book?
Yes.
Maybe he wrote the bad book.
And then he's like cutting out the parts. He's like, if I were to just give you this book, you would be bored by it.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you only the exciting parts.
And then cut away to tell you about this chapter about hats real quick before we
Yes.
go back to the good
This
stuff.
could happen with Lord of the Rings. Be like, and then they eat and walk for a long time, but we're gonna skip over that.
Honestly, there are quite a few parts. Of
Well,
Lord of the
that's
Rings that
what
you
the
just like-
movies are. The
Yeah,
movies are
right?
fixing Tolkien's inability to pace, right?
Except for The Hobbit, which does
Oh,
the
yeah.
opposite and takes a well-paced book and makes it into 3
There's a
movies
whole
for
eating
no given
scene.
reason.
Like the Hobbit's the only.
Yes, exactly.
I agree
The
with you on
Hobbit
every
is
sense. Like
so well-paced. Excellent little book.
Funny.
so, but I want to talk about sagas a little bit. So when a saga comes out, it enters with a counter, triggers, does the first chapter, and when it gets to the last chapter, it puts that on. It triggers the ability, and then it gets sacrificed after that ability leaves the stack. So you can respond to that. So if you have one of the cards in the set that lets you sacrifice an enchantment at instant speed, you can put that trigger on the stack and then sacrifice the saga if you had wanted to.
Great. Value.
Nice.
Yeah, tons of value. Just be aware that you have to be pretty explicit about doing so. Your opponent knows what's going on, because otherwise they'll be like, it's getting sacrificed. I agree. Yeah, that's what it does.
Yeah.
You'd be like, no, I want to respond to this ability. So, escape is the new mechanic. I am very excited about escape.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I really like
new
it.
stuff. Escape is like flashback that's self-limiting, which is really nice. So we're going to look at Chainweb Arachnir here. It's a 1/2 for single green, creature spider with reach. When Chainweb Arachnir enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying that an opponent controls. So it just ones a opponent's flyer, which isn't terribly great. It has escape for green, and 3. Exile green, 3, and exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. That is a cost to escape from your graveyard. You eat 4 other things, you pay the mana cost, you cast the spell from your graveyard. Chainweb Arachnir here says it escapes with 3 +1/+1 counters on it.
Nice.
This is a good card, by the way. Saw
This
it
is
in play
incredibly good
during
card.
Team Series Finals. Do not sleep on this card.
Yeah, and like everyone who I've known who's looked at it goes, this card's insane, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay.
Comes
But-
back as a little 4/6 that
Yeah.
hits something.
Yep.
And
So-
also, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
yeah.
you, but escape here, there's no exiling it after it dies when it comes back with those
yeah,
counters.
that was the next thing there are 2 things that I want to talk about relative to it. Anything that escapes with counters, which are a lot of the commons and uncommons, they escape with additional counters on them. They enter and they always have those counters. And so Chainweb Arachnir will have them before its triggered ability, before it punches the opponent's creature.
Great point.
And you can't respond to that. It always has the counter, so it doesn't come out, trigger, and then they
Take
can
it
respond
from your
to kill
graveyard with a little die on it.
it. Well, yeah, exactly. It just
That's how I have to think
Yep.
about it.
And because there's a lot of instants and sorceries with escape, you cast them and they go back to the graveyard. Normally with flashback, if they had flashback, they would exile themselves as they leave the stack. Nope.
You can do it
just
again.
do it again, which is going to cause some real interesting things when we give escape to cards that really shouldn't have it, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
so-
spicy.
We're going to get to individual cards, and we're going to talk about that granter. Oh, if somebody gets escape twice, because we granted it escape with the card that does, then you get to choose which escape you use. And all of them are different. They all exile a different number of cards. They all pay a different amount of mana for it. So just you have to read the whole text of escape to figure out exactly what you're paying in order to play that from your graveyard.
Are we going to talk about that card coming up?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
It's in my individual cards.
I was going to say, 'cause
I wanted to spend some
I have
time.
questions, so we'll get to it.
Yeah, I put it down here, right? Yeah, Underworld
Yeah.
Breach.
All right.
So, yeah, Underworld Breach has a lot of stuff going on with it. This set, spoilers, it's got some weird stuff going on and some decisions that I don't agree with for some of these cards. So, Kallax, Destiny's Hand. It's the new Planeswalker. He's a construct?
Yeah.
Question mark. So white.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was created by a green-red god, and he's
We have some
green-white.
listeners with some
Yeah.
questions about that.
Everybody
Yeah.
does, I think, and I can't answer them. I don't know anything. So, white green 2, legendary planeswalker Kallax enters with 4 loyalty +1. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put that card into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. That's fine, whatever. Straightforward. -3, exile target creature or enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you do control leaves the battlefield. So you pick an enchantment you control, you pick a creature or enchantment they control, and then put it underneath yours, basically. Just like it turned into a Banishing Light. And so this ability has a duration on it, and that thing will come back immediately when that card leaves the battlefield. It isn't a triggered ability. You can't stop it with things that counter triggered abilities. There's one of those in this set. It's just going to come back as soon as that thing leaves the battlefield for whatever reason.
Okay.
-7, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is weird. There are auras, right? Let's say that you don't have any creatures, but your graveyard has some enchantment creatures and some auras.
Yeah.
Everything tries to come out at once. The auras that have enchant creature don't have anything to attach to if there's no creatures in the battlefield. And they stay in the graveyard.
Oh, weird.
Because it isn't return. A lot of things will be like return everything and then return a second set of things, and he's just return all enchantments. It's also not optional. So if you don't have any creatures and you have auras with enchant creature, but your opponent has creatures, you have to return the auras and put them on your opponent's creatures.
That's rude.
It's not optional. It just tells you to do it.
And the auras have to go on something.
Yep, they must go on something if there's something that they can enchant.
That's
so
bizarre.
if you have no creatures and your opponent does have creatures,
Yes.
and you have a bunch of auras in your graveyard,
Yes.
maybe don't use this
Yeah,
ability.
probably think real hard about not returning things with Calyx.
Wow. That's messed up, man.
All right.
It also you can attach these auras to things that you sometimes couldn't attach things to. So if your opponent's creatures have hexproof, auras target when you cast them. They don't target if they're just put directly onto the battlefield. So if your opponent is a creature with hexproof and you have Mogus's whatever that gives
You
it
could
-2,
put,
-1.
What about Ichthyomorphosis,
Yeah,
for example?
Ichthyomorphosis. Yep. You could attach Ichthyomorphosis to it, and then it would stop having hexproof.
Oh,
That's wild.
my mind is boggled.
Yeah, that I looked at Calyx and I was
Speaking
like,
of
this guy
boggles.
has some stuff going on.
Yeah, all
Nyx
right.
Bloom Ancient. You ready for a card that's going to make people unhappy?
Absolutely.
It looks like it does a lot of things, and it does, and then it doesn't do some things that you think it might. Green, 4, 5/5, enchantment creature elemental, Nyx Bloom Ancient. Trample. Okay. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead.
Yikes.
Wow.
It's a lot of mana.
It's a lot of mana. It also costs 7 mana up front. I expect my 7 mana green creatures to be pretty good. You're 1 mana off a Craterhoof at that point, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
It better be Craterhoof -1.
Yeah. This might actually be Craterhoof -1. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
If you untap with this, you probably should win the game. But some limitations on this. The thing has to have a tap symbol on it that is being used to create mana.
Yeah.
So Urza, we referenced him a little bit earlier. He says tap an untapped artifact you control, add blue to your mana pool. That is not tripled by Nyx Bloom Ancient.
Okay.
Because that thing is not using a tap ability with a
It's
tap symbol.
using Urza's
Well,
the
yeah.
text on Urza.
Urza
Yeah,
is telling it to.
Yes.
Yes.
And also things that trigger from those don't give you mana. So in this very same set, there's Wolf Willow Haven. Green and 1, enchantment aura, enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. So this is not tripled by Nyx Bloom Ancient.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you put this on a forest with Nyx Bloom Ancient out, you tap the forest for green. Then Wolf Willow Haven would add 1 more green, so you'd get 4.
All right.
So Nyx Bloom Ancient doesn't triple all mana, just tapping permanents for mana.
Okay.
On another related note, there's a green card in the set that makes a gold token.
Yes.
It does not explain what that gold token does. If you're used to treasure is tap and sacrifice to add 1 mana of any color. I actually might have that pretty close to next because I was going to mention it because gold is not spelled out on the card at all. I'm just going to skip
I'm
to it.
so excited for gold tokens to come back.
So the first I row in games, it's a saga, and you get gold because you won the first I row in games as its 4th chapter. Gold tokens sacrifice to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. They do not tap and sacrifice like a treasure token. So this gold token is not tripled by Nyx Bloom Ancient.
All right.
Okay. Got it.
And I don't,
But a treasure would be?
yes.
All right.
But yes, so if you have treasure tokens and gold tokens behave differently from each other.
I prefer gold tokens.
So I do too, because I play King Makar in Commander, and I definitely use gold tokens to improvise and then also cast spells.
Dang.
And you can't do that with treasures, which is why treasures tap.
Yes, it is, precisely. Ooh, here's a card that seems pretty cool. Ephemia the Cacophony.
Yeah, she's a 2/1 legendary enchantment creature harpy for black and 1. She is flying, and at the beginning of your end step, you may exile an enchantment card from your graveyard. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So she doesn't target that thing in the graveyard. Her trigger goes in the stack. Your opponent gets the chance to resolve or respond then if they want to exile some things in your graveyard. And if they don't and they let it resolve, you pick what to exile, you exile it, you make a token. They don't get the chance to sneak in there and exile it to block you to counter this in any way. So if they exile the thing you wanted to exile, you can exile something else instead. You don't make the choice until the trigger resolves.
And it triggering at the beginning of your end step is also a little strange.
Yeah, it's a little weird because so you'll play the Cacophony, go to your end step, and make a zombie right away. Oftentimes, she's gonna be 4 power for 2 mana a lot.
Yeah,
I think.
So keep
which
that
is
in mind.
pretty good. Ashiok's Eraser, blue and 2 for an enchantment.
Whoa! Did you say eraser?
I mean,
Erasure.
Erasure.
yeah. I've got a Midwestern mush mouth.
I really like Ashiok's Eraser, though. That's a much better name for a card. He's got a little pencil, and he's like, let me erase your good dream.
Well, if you look at this, he's kind of like, he has a magic...
They.
Well, no, that's they. You're right. A, they, and B, I thought that was like an object that they were holding, but it's a person's head.
It's a brain?
No,
What?
that's somebody's head.
It's their head.
Okay.
So,
Creepy.
yeah. So, yeah. It's an enchantment. It has flash. Flash means you can play it anytime. You can play an instant. And this is important for this card because it says when it enters the battlefield, exile target spell. A spell is anything on the stack. Instant sorceries, creatures, enchantments, anything on the stack. Ashiok can erase. Your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. And when Ashiok's Erasure leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to its owner's hand. So they can try again now that it's unlocked from it. This, unlike Kallax, is a triggered ability. So that triggered ability that would go to return their card, you can counter that. If you do that, it'll stay in exile. And you know what happens if it stays in exile? They could cast other copies of it now because the Erasure has that your opponents can't cast text, but it left the battlefield, and so it isn't there anymore to provide that continuous effect.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yep. Just a lot of weird stuff going on to think through.
I like
They
this
made
card.
you forget
Yeah.
the spell.
Bronze-Hide Lion. It's a 3/3 cat for green and white.
Meow.
Yep. And it's, man, I remember back in the day when they printed Watchwolf, and that was a really good card. This is like 3 kinds of upgrade from Watchwolf.
Let's go, kitty cats.
Yeah. So Bronze-Hide Lion has the activated ability white-green. Bronze-Hide Lion gains indestructible until end of turn. And when Bronze-Hide Lion, it has a second ability. When Bronze-Hide Lion dies, return it to the battlefield. It's now an aura enchantment with enchant creature you control, and green-white enchanted creature gains indestructible until end of turn, and it loses all of their abilities.
Complicated.
Oh,
This
sorry,
card is
what?
complicated.
Yeah. So you remember I mentioned auras. They come back. They don't target. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen is they're going to kill your Bronze-Hide Lion. It enters the battlefield, and unlike Kallax, the aura is going to have enchant creature you control. So if you have no other creatures, it will just fail to return to the battlefield. It'll stay in the graveyard.
Thank God.
Yep. I mean, it doesn't matter because, well, it does because it gives that activated ability to the creature. You can put it on any creature you control, and if they let you choose a creature, it's too late. The trigger is resolved, and you get the aura on that creature. So I have another creature. You kill my Bronze-Hide Lion. Trigger goes in the stack. You say, kill this thing. I go, well, I'll put it on this third creature instead.
Yeah.
Because as it resolves, I make that choice. It doesn't target as part of the trigger, so be careful because when that Bronze-Hide Lion dies, it's going to be coming back on something.
Oh.
Wow.
Boy.
That's a little counterintuitive, I think.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I think they wanted to make sure that you didn't get blown out because we're going to talk a bit more about auras and targeting. You are going to be able to get hosed pretty badly in the set by instant speed removal because auras have this inherent problem where if you target something with an aura, your opponent can respond by killing your creature.
Yeah.
Classic 2-for-1.
Yep.
But not when it comes back from the graveyard because it's not targeting.
Yep.
Wild!
Bronze-Hide Lion.
Yep.
We'll
Okay.
call back to our buddy Fleecemane Lion.
Yeah.
Yep.
From
Which are
original
both callbacks
Theros.
to the Nemean Lion. So, Elspeth Conquers Death.
My favorite art in this set.
Really?
What do you mean, really? It's really cool. It looks like a
No,
mosaic.
it is really cool. There's just a lot of really good art in this
Yeah,
set.
that is
There's 3 good Seb McKinnon pieces at least, right?
Oh, yeah. 3 straight bangers.
Right. So Elspeth Conquers Death. It's a saga, enchantment saga. White 3 to cast. It has 3 chapters. Chapter 1: exile target permanent and opponent controls with converted mana cost 3 or greater. Straightforward. Chapter 2: Non-creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 mana more to cast until your next turn. And Chapter 3, return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter or a loyalty counter on it. This one is a little weird. It doesn't care what type of permanent it is. If you return a Gideon, you can put a +1/+1 counter on a Gideon. You choose which type of counter, and you can put inappropriate counters on things. You can put loyalty counters on your creatures.
Inappropriate counters.
That counter is just straight up inappropriate.
Yeah.
That's what I said when I saw somebody had black marble countertops with light wood colored shelves. So inappropriate.
That's
what my bathroom is like.
Wow. You just insulted Judge Rob's bathroom.
I was actually trying to remember what it was, but I recently did see some counters plus cabinets that together I was like, this is horrible. But I can't remember the exact what it was, but I did have that reaction.
like white marble with light wood is actually pretty ugly.
I don't know what it was, but yeah it was.
Ooh, white marble with light wood is actually a very bad
We're gonna get so many tweets like, that's my kitchen picture.
Yep.
Send us your kitchens, everyone.
So you can put loyalty counters in your creatures this way.
Weird.
This usually doesn't help you, but it does let you put +1/+1 counters on Gideon or Sarkhan. This may be a thing that you care about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's legit.
Yeah.
So, Grasping Giant. Grasping Giant's a fun guy. White and 5. He just wants to hug you. He's a 5/7 giant. Vigilance. Whenever Grasping Giant becomes blocked by a creature, exile that creature until Grasping Giant leaves the battlefield. So you block him, he hugs you, and just holds on to you and never lets you go. The thing with Grasping Giant, if you give him trample, he's basically just unblockable.
Wow.
Because if you exile the thing before damage, and if there's nothing left blocking a trampling creature, they get to assign all the damage to the player. And he does this to every creature that blocks him.
Great.
So
amazing.
There are 4 ways to give trample in this set, something like that. So it's going to happen.
He has so many hugs to give.
Yes, so many hugs to give. Person who doesn't like hugs is Haktos the Unscarred, though. White, red, legendary creature, human warrior. Haktos is a 6/1. Achilles is mentioned in previous episodes. But Haktos the Unscarred, he attacks each combat of Fable. He doesn't want to hug you, he wants to punch you. As Haktos enters the battlefield, choose 2, 3, or 4 at random. Haktos has protection from each converted mana cost other than the chosen number, which is super sweet.
This is a very good card.
It's a very good card, but its goodness is variant. There's a couple of different ways to determine what number. You can just roll a die and re-roll anything that isn't 2, 3, or 4. Is a pretty straightforward and easy way to just solve this.
Don't roll a d20.
Yeah, you'll be there for a bit.
Oh God, 18.
18. Once
Okay,
again.
hold on.
7. Nope. Yeah.
Nope.
Yep. The thing with Haktos, if something turns into a copy of Haktos, it doesn't have that as it enters the battlefield. Choose 2, 3, or 4. That choice was never made.
Oh.
Because it's just a copy and it just is.
It copies all the text. It didn't enter the battlefield. If it was on the battlefield and changes into a copy of him, what that means is that it doesn't have protection from anything. This is something that really hasn't existed too much in the rules before. It's clear in the release notes. If you get that ability and didn't choose a number for it, you don't have protection from anything at all.
Okay.
Which you would think would be hard to do, except that Protean Thaumaturge is in this set and does exactly that. Protean Thaumaturge is a blue and 1 for a 1/1. Creature, human, wizard, constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Protean Thaumaturge become a copy of another target creature, except that it has this ability.
Nice.
So it can just keep copying.
Yep.
Whenever Constellation is triggered.
Yep. But if it becomes a copy of Haktos, it'll just be a 6/1 that has to fight each turn. It doesn't have his protection.
That's so funny.
Yep. I was like, there's no way they would put a onboard copy effect in the same set with it. Oh. Oh, okay.
In fact, there was a way. Narrator.
And no, the Thaumaturge, when it copies like that, like I said, isn't entering the battlefield. So if you change it into an enchantment creature, it won't trigger Constellation on anything. It just is that thing now.
Yes, that is very important to note.
And it doesn't have summoning sickness if you change it into some big creature. Because it's
already been there.
Right. Assuming that it's been out. If you change it the turn that you play it, it still has summoning sickness. Its summoning sickness is based on it as an object.
Like you're not making like a copy token. It's becoming a copy.
Exactly. Iron Scale Hydra.
What a big boy.
Yeah.
I'll read this card for you if you want some water.
Absolutely.
It is green 3 for a 5/5 creature Hydra. If a creature would deal combat damage to Iron Scale Hydra, prevent that damage and put a +1/+1 counter on it instead.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. You can't win combat with it.
Ever.
You can win fights, though. Fighting it is not combat damage.
Ooh.
So it can lose in fights. There's also a very strange thing that can happen with a card from Throne of Eldraine. So two cards from Throne of Eldraine say combat damage that creatures you control would deal can't be prevented.
Yes.
Questing Beast and Stomp both stop damage from being prevented this turn, for different ways relative to this. So if you attack with a Questing Beast and I block with Iron Scale Hydra, the damage isn't prevented, but I do get a counter on my Iron Scale Hydra.
Yeah. And then it dies to Death Touch.
Yeah,
But-
look.
I just
That's Future
wanna
Russ's
say
problem.
dies to
It's
Death
more
Touch.
likely to happen with Stomp because
Yes.
Stomp says damage can't be prevented this turn at all. So
Which is something that we never really had to think about with Stomp before.
I've used that. I've won matches of Modern due to that.
Oh, Modern.
Against
no, sorry,
Fog?
no, Pioneer. It was Pioneer. My opponent definitely was playing the
There's a
the
Turbo
turns
Fog deck.
the Nexus of Fate deck, but when Nexus of Fate was legal,
Great.
and they were like, "Fog you,"
You're like, "Ha, ha,
Stomp, combat. They're like, game 2. Shadow Spear
This card is on my bad, naughty list.
for
You'll see.
yeah, you're right. So Shadow Spear, it's a 1-cost artifact equipment, legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. 1 mana, activated ability, permanents your opponent's control, lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Equips for 2 mana. Shadow Spear, when you activate it, takes the current hexproof and indestructible and throws them away. If they gain hexproof or indestructible after that ability resolves, they'll still have hexproof or indestructible. So we talked about the lion earlier
Yeah.
that can give indestructible. You can activate it, they Shadow Spear to remove it, and then you activate it again, and then you will have indestructible.
But what if they activate Shadow Spear again?
Then it'll fall off again.
You can keep going.
Yeah, you can keep going.
You can
It's
both
based
just
on people having
keep
mana.
going.
Yeah.
Great.
Also, I love it's the Shadow Spear. It's Heliod's spear. Come back to haunt him.
Yes, it's the undead version of Heliod's spear. Elspeth has retrieved it from wherever the hell he lost it.
Oh, that's so.
Heliod, your butt don't have
Creepy.
indestructible anymore.
Yeah.
Ooh,
This
I
is-
like it. Flavorful.
This is like Godsend but evil. Storm Herald, red and 2, creature human shaman, 3/2. Haste. When Storm Herald enters the battlefield, return any number of aura cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures you control. Exile those auras at the beginning of your next end step. If those auras would leave the battlefield, exile them instead of putting them anywhere else.
So this sounds familiar to things you've heard already.
Yeah. So it's got the auras don't target. You can move them onto things. He doesn't care about if the auras are enchant creature auras. So if you have an enchantment or an enchant land and you have something that is both an enchantment and a creature or an enchantment and a land, you get to aura them up with those weird auras. It probably won't come up that much. What I wanted to talk about, though, is actually the card that's going to come up a bunch of common notes is Flicker of Fate. It's an instant for white and 1. Exile target creature or enchantment, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So if you return an aura with Storm Herald, and then Flicker of Fate it gets exiled. Storm Herald is on board with. It's like, yeah, you went to exile, I agree. It comes back as a new object, and it sticks around forever. It's a totally new aura as far as Storm Herald is concerned.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right.
Yep.
Fair enough.
And Flicker of Fate does a lot of weird things like this, because it lets you remove and then return something. Thassa will do the same kind of thing, because she exiles and then returns something. And that's an immediate exile, then return. And so you can use Thassa or Flicker of Fate with Storm Herald to do fascinating things. I already mentioned the thing that I cared about in that. Underworld Breach. Why did they print a red Yawgmoth's Will?
Well,
I have concerns about this card existing. So Underworld Breach is an enchantment for red and 1. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape
Sure.
cost on it is equal to the card's mana cost, plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. So it's escape of their cost plus 3 cards. And then at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach.
The first thought I had
Yeah.
when I saw this card is, uh-oh. That's what I thought. And I don't even know why I had that thought, but I had it.
So
well, you
This-
probably should have.
this card is so I've had people ask, why is this an enchantment? Cards like this in the past, like Past in Flames, have always been instants or sorceries. And the thing is that Underworld Breach is designed so that things that die after you cast it will still get escape. Because normally with a card like Past in Flames, which says instants or sorceries in your graveyard gain flashback, it locks in that set of cards at the time that you cast it. And so things that go to the graveyard later don't get the flashback from Past in Flames.
Wow, yeah.
But with Underworld Breach, it's a continuous effect in an enchantment, so it just keeps applying to new cards as they enter the graveyard, which solves a memory problem. But it means that you can cast spells that mill yourself in order to build up bigger numbers for Underworld Breach.
Sure.
Or you can use Grinding
Cool.
Station to sacrifice
Cool.
zero-cost permanents to mill yourself for 3.
Great. Cool.
Yeah.
Fine.
Right?
Okay. This sounds fine.
Did you know that they banned the best zero-cost permanent in Modern?
I did hear that.
Very happy
I
about
did hear
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that keeps your combo from generating infinite mana while you're on your way to grape-shotting your opponent for 20, just for having a Grinding Station plus an Underworld Breach on the battlefield.
Well, that's something.
Yep.
Check out our news podcast, The Upkeep, anywhere fine podcasts are found for news every week, including band announcements.
That's right.
And this is a big one. So as I mentioned, Underworld Breach will apply to things that happen later. If the thing doesn't have a mana cost, so each non-land card in your graveyard has escape, there are non-land cards without mana costs.
Like Ancestral Recall.
Ancestral Vision. Ancestral Vision. Ancestral Recall has a mana cost.
I just dream
Giving that
about
escape,
it sometimes.
I want to give Ancestral Recall escape.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, this is gonna get restricted in Vintage.
Ancestral Vision.
I don't know why it isn't already restricted in Vintage. But Ancestral Visions doesn't have a mana cost.
Yeah.
So you give it a cost of null, not 0, but null, plus exile some cards, and you can't cast that. You can't.
Okay.
You can't pay that lack of a mana
Yeah.
cost, and so you can't cast Ancestral Vision.
You
with
can't
Underworld
pay a
Breach.
value that doesn't exist.
Yep. Note that this gives escape, which is an alternative cost. If there's other alternative costs associated with that, like it's a Force of Will, you have to choose between escape's alternative cost and the alternative cost of the other alternative cost that we try to apply.
Okay.
So like if something has instead of paying the mana cost on this card, you may exile a blue card from your hand and pay 1 life, like Force of Will. You can't pitch to Force of Will to fulfill the escape cost.
It's like when
Okay.
something's on sale, you can't use another discount code.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Like earlier when we were talking about the little spider
Yep.
that comes back with some counters on it,
Yep.
and it says this spider.
Chainweb Arachneer.
Yes, I'm obviously shortcutting. This spider escapes with 3+1/+1 counters on it.
Yep.
If I use Underworld Breach to escape that spider, does it have counters?
Yep. Because it
Alright.
escaped.
Dang,
You don't have,
kids.
you don't have to use the printed escape. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, if you give something multiple instances of escape, like that
Yeah.
Arachneer, you get to choose which one to use.
You're
So
right, 'cause
Chain
then
Web
it only costs
Arachneer.
one.
Yeah.
And it doesn't care how it escaped.
Yeah.
It only knows that it escaped.
Right.
It's like, I did it.
Wow.
Yep.
got
I
out.
broke out of prison. That means I'm tough. I'm ready
Alright.
to fight.
Sick.
The other thing with escape in this card is, as mentioned, instants and sorceries will go back to your graveyards that you can escape with them again. If you escape Ancestral Recall 3 times in a turn, you are winning the game.
I sure hope so, kids.
Which is very, like, when I say this card is a problem for Vintage, this is Yawgmoth's Will that doesn't exile your cards.
Hot.
Like, this is
Okay.
preposterous.
Sexy.
You can also,
Preposterous has been called.
you can also do all sorts of fun things with this. You can return this to your hand. If you have something that says return target permanent to your hand, you can play Underworld Breach, do a bunch of nonsense, and then bounce it with your bounce spell, which then lets you do it again the next turn.
Nice.
Which doesn't
Great.
seem that fair. I don't know why this only costs 2 mana.
Can
Like-
I bring this back with another Underworld?
You can. It probably won't help you that much. They're both going to get sacrificed during the end step, is the thing. And
okay.
so
Anyway.
there's a lot of stuff going on with this card.
Wow. Okay. So our most complicated friend so far.
Yes, this is
Underworld Breach.
this is pretty handily the most complicated card in terms of, like, it has a new mechanic that it gives it to a bunch of other things, and it behaves in ways that cards really haven't done in the past.
Yeah.
So,
Fun.
and it removes all the self-limiting stuff. This card is incredibly powerful. So here's my rant about 2 cards.
Yes.
So Nisshin Hornbeetle is a 2/2 for green and 1. Creature insect. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, if you control another creature with power 4 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Nisshin Hornbeetle.
Pretty straightforward. All right.
And I emphasize some words in there. It has to be your combat on your turn, and you have to have another creature.
Yeah, this
With
is like
4
the
power.
green-red draft deck. Here.
Yeah, and so there's a bunch of cards that care about 4 power matters.
Yeah.
Stampede Rider is another card that cares about 4 power matters. It's a red and 2 for a 2/3 satyr with trample. At the beginning of each combat, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, Stampede Rider gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Stampede Rider triggers both on your turn and your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it somehow has 4 power, like you have equipped a sword on it, then it will trigger itself, unlike Nisshin Hornbeetle. So these cards are different. They look really similar. They have the same kind of words on them. They do very different things. Pay attention to them being different.
Yeah.
I'm actually frustrated that 2 cards that look this similar will behave this differently in actual play.
Yeah, I actually referenced Stampede Rider during the Team Series final. I looked it up. I had the spoiler right next to me, and I read it, and I completely forgot that it's each combat.
Yeah, and you're going to get blown up by this if you go to a paper tournament and it's a competitive tournament and your opponent has a Stampede Rider and you attack into it. They can just, surprise, I've got a 3/4 and you didn't realize it.
I guess the good part of it is that you also have a 4-power creature.
Yeah.
which
Yes.
they know.
Yeah, but sometimes you'll be able to you'll have like the wings on it, and you'll be attacking with the other 4-power creature and leaving Stampede Rider home because you only have one way to have a flyer or
Yeah.
whatever. There's a lot of 4-power flyers in this
Yeah,
set.
that's a good point.
And so, or 4-power creatures that you'd be attacking with the other one, leading Stampede
Sure.
Rider home. So, or you put a sword in Stampede Rider and surprise them by giving it a bonus with itself on their turn. And so,
It's our little satyr friend writing this.
Oh yeah, Galia.
Yeah.
yeah,
I just really,
She's
I wanted
always
to point
so
out, at
happy.
least
Yeah.
the art is very enjoyable.
Yes.
She's having a great
And I
time.
love how all the animals in Theros have cool designs on them.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
bull has a really cool pattern.
Yep.
And the wolf token has spirals in its fur.
yeah. One with the stars. Blue and 3, enchantment aura, enchant creature or enchantment. Enchanted permanent is an enchantment and loses all other card types.
I give up.
So this reminds you what it does. It still has its abilities, but it's no longer a creature.
Okay.
But what about enchantment creatures? Those are creatures.
Yep.
But now they're
No,
not.
they're just an enchantment. They lost all their other types but enchantment. They lose their creature subtypes. So if it's a goblin, it's no longer a goblin. It loses anything that isn't an enchantment subtype. So if it's not an aura or one of the other ones like cartouche, then it's gonna lose its enchantment subtypes. You know what it doesn't lose? Super types. It's still legendary. It's still snow. It's still basic. It's still world.
Because man, once you're basic, you
Yeah,
can't
well,
be.
you can't stop being basic.
That poor goblin.
Yep. But so this is relevant if you won with the stars, one of the demigods, which are uncommon legendary creatures, right? And there's a bunch of uncommon legendary creatures, so it's possible to open 2 of the same legendary creature in your pool. They can one with the stars, one of your legendary creatures. You'll play another copy, and then you have to choose which one to keep. Because
Okay.
one with the stars does not remove the name,
Yeah.
and it doesn't stop it from being legendary.
All right.
This is so funny because I briefly read through the spoiler and saw this and I was like, what does this even do? And I kept reading. I didn't even think of it as a removal spell.
Yeah, it's a removal spell. It stops it from being a creature. They still have their text, but oftentimes, like, if they're just like, I got a 5/5, and you're just like, I'll pay 4 mana to kill that. Seems fine.
Yeah.
If it
So-
had like an activated ability, does it still have that?
Yep.
Great.
And you can tap that enchantment. You can get tapped enchantments. They're just fine. The rules support them. They just don't do them much. As in, there are 5. Altar of the Pantheon. This one has words that are hard to understand. It's a 3-mana artifact. Your devotion to each color and each combination of colors is increased by 1. Tap. Add 1 mana of any color. If you control a god, a demigod, or a legendary enchantment, you gain 1 life.
Okay.
So this first chunk, that they're trying to be clear about it, but it's still, I've had people that've been
Yeah.
muddled about it. Anytime anything checks your devotion, whether that's to a single color or multiple colors at the same time, increase that number by 1 for each altar of the Pantheon.
Okay.
That's it. That's
So if you're looking at your devotion, oh my goodness. If you're looking at your devotion to green for Nylea,
yep.
it would look at this and it'd be like, it's 1 more.
Yes.
If you're looking at your devotion to red and green,
Yep.
for something.
For Clothis, yep.
Yeah, for Clothis.
They're both on the battlefield.
Yes.
Is your devotion to red and green only goes up by 1?
Correct.
Not 1 for each.
Correct.
All right.
That is confusing because
Yes.
that does not say that to me when I read it.
Right. That's what. But what they want. I'm assuming playtest they just wrote devotion +1 on all their playtest cards.
Yeah.
Which, if you explain it that way, it makes sense. Anytime something checks devotion, increase that by 1. And then somebody in editing came by and said, "Your words are beautiful, but I'm gonna have to kill them and replace them with words that work." This works, but it's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Also, you only ever gain 1 life from this. If you have 4 demigods, Alter don't care. You can only get 1 life out of it.
Alter
don't care.
Yeah. This is the front runner for
Oh,
grossest
God.
card.
I knew it.
You probably don't want to look.
Oh, it's too late.
So gross.
Aspect of Lamprey,
Why? No.
just want to kiss you.
black and 3, enchantment aura.
If you haven't seen this card, by the way,
No.
You should look at it.
Oh.
Like,
somebody with their
you should look
mouth
at it precisely once.
is a sucking lamprey mouth.
Oh.
So enchant creature you control. When aspect of Lamprey enters the battlefield, target opponent discards 2 cards.
Oh.
Enchanted creature has lifelink.
Okay.
So this is what I talked about getting 2 for 1. You can get this enchantment. Most of its value is tied up in the makes your opponent discard 2 cards.
Yeah.
Right? You're paying 4 mana for a mind rot that gives lifelink, and that's on par for a reasonable limited card. The thing is that if you cast this and they remove your creature in response to the enchantment spell on the stack, then the enchantment spell fails to resolve, doesn't enter the battlefield, and won't trigger this triggered ability.
Right.
So you'll have spent 4 mana, they'll have removed your creature, which you cared about enough to give lifelink because you tried to put this on a good creature, and then you'll get blown out. There are like 8 enchantments like this in the set that have enters the battlefield triggers. So be very careful not to play these into open mana, and know that if your opponent plays them into your open mana, you can blow them out pretty badly. And also, this card is disgusting. Yep, I'm scrolling down, not up.
Okay.
I'm
It
scrolling
is
on to the next one. This is how
unsettling.
you feel looking
Yes.
at that card, right?
Yeah.
Dreadful.
I love this.
It's a dreadful apathy.
They're just like, we can't. We
Yep.
can't go up these stairs.
Yep. And this one person in the background's like, I want to lay down, but there's these stairs in the way. White and 2, enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. White and 2, exile enchanted creature.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a removal spell, and then you get to remove the thing again after you removed it if you need the text gone.
I saw
It's
this
really gone.
clause be
Yes.
relevant when a sweeper was cast, Shatter the Sky, which
Yep.
killed all creatures, but before killing all of the creatures, they exiled this so that it could not escape.
Yep. This is really good at exiling things so they can't escape. It's good at removing it, not just blocking it out of combat, but removing it from the board entirely to get rid of abilities. It kills gods. It's nice.
Dang.
There's
Even
some
if they're
things with
not a
this.
creature yet?
Well, it can't go on it. Enchant creature. It wouldn't be able to go on the god if it's
Okay,
not a creature
yeah.
yet. As long as the god's a creature, though, Dreadful Apathy can come out and then make it really tired. The god's like, I'm too tired.
I don't want
I want to leave.
I don't care.
So the things with Dreadful Apathy. Dreadful Apathy's activated ability cares about the thing that it is enchanting at the time that it's activated and at the time that it resolves. If Dreadful Apathy isn't on the battlefield at the time that the ability resolves, it uses the last known information. So if you have a Dreadful Apathy on the battlefield, activate Exile Enchanted Creature, and then return it to your hand somehow, it'll exile the thing that it was enchanted on. Because that's the last known information about it when it was on the battlefield.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yep, and this is relevant for the Flicker, the Flicker of Fate in this set.
And also, there's a single mana blue that bounces an opponent's.
Yeah, so if your opponent bounces your Dreadful Apathy.
You can be like,
Yes.
exile that thing, and it'll
Yep.
be like, exile this creature, and it goes back to my hand.
Well, it's just really awkward,
Oh.
right?
Yeah.
Because if they bounce your Dreadful Apathy, you get your Dreadful Apathy back, which isn't what they want.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
okay.
why it's bounce your opponent's stuff instead of bounce
Yeah.
your stuff. Dreadful Apathy, when you flicker it with Flicker of Fate, when it comes out, it's a totally new Dreadful Apathy. It has no idea about its previous existence. It's a totally new object. So it isn't connected to the thing that is going to get exiled by that activated
So
ability.
you could keep, in theory, playing this, activating the exile,
and then flickering it in response. Yep, to your own activation.
Cool.
If you're doing this on Magic Online, you need to hold control in order to hold priority on your own Dreadful Apathy activation. On Arena, you have to take full control mode to do that, right?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I play more Magic Online than Arena because I play more Pioneer and Modern than I do Standard by a wide margin. So the other thing with Dreadful Apathy is a lot of times players will think that if I put an enchantment on your creature, you control the enchantment. It's not true. The player who played the enchantment controls it. So the controller of Dreadful Apathy, the person who cast it, is the one who gets to activate that ability. In case there's confusion on that point,
Yeah,
because
good
players will
reminder.
get lost. Flummoxed Cyclops.
This card's flavor A+.
I love this card. So red and 3 for a 4/4 Cyclops with reach. Whenever 2 or more creatures your opponents control attack, Flummoxed Cyclops can't block this combat.
Because then it can only
Gets
see one.
confused,
like-
and he gets confused. He
And he's
keeps
just
looking.
sort of like, oh, there's so many attacking. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
So the thing with Flummoxed Cyclops is that's a triggered ability. If your opponent attacks with 2 creatures, that trigger is going to happen, and
Yeah.
the trigger is going to stop him from blocking, even if you kill one of the attackers.
Okay.
So if you let them attack with 2 creatures, the Cyclops will get confused.
Makes sense.
Oh,
Even
that's
if
so funny.
even if you get rid of the one and leave one behind, he still
Yeah.
got real
He still
confused
has
when
no
they
idea
both
what's
came at him.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
no.
I know there was more
Yeah.
than one.
Yep.
Amazing.
Thirst for Meaning. Blue and 2 instant, draw 3 cards.
Beautiful.
Then discard 2 cards unless you discard an enchantment card. So you have some choices here. You can discard an enchantment, or you can discard 2 cards. Those 2 cards could be enchantments if you want them to be.
Yeah.
It's relevant if you want to stock up your graveyard for escape, because you need something in your graveyard. You can choose to discard an enchantment and something else, or 2 enchantments, or 1 enchantment,
All right.
or 2 non-enchantment cards.
Well, that's
so
good
you
to
have
know, yeah.
Yeah.
you have a whole bunch of different options for Thirst for Meaning, and don't let people tell you otherwise. And that was the last thing that was on my hit list for individual cards.
Wow.
Actually.
Wow.
That was a lot this time around.
is
Oh
a
man,
lot.
there's so many weird tiny things buried in this set.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even get into the heroic, fake heroic
Yeah.
Fake
mechanic,
heroic.
Fake
Yeah.
heroic.
which is whenever this thing is targeted, give all your creatures +1/+0,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it has to be the target of a spell. Like I don't know why it isn't just heroic, but all of them are named hero of whatever. They're like they
Oh,
have
really? Oh,
they
okay.
have hero in the name. So I just want to be able to search for them, right?
Yeah. Hero.
Like there's hero of the games, hero of the Nyxborn, hero of the Revel, hero of the Pride, hero of the Winds.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Well, that's
Like-
a neat way to remember that.
Yeah, and so they did tie them all together. It's just I can't find them when I search for the word heroic
Sure.
using something like
Yeah,
Scryfall.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like this one says heroic deeds inspire new heroes. Well, yeah, I'm just put the word heroic in the
I'll tell you about a heroic deed.
Yeah.
Putting heroic on these cards.
right.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's really neat. Well, we're going to take some questions from listeners.
Yeah.
But if you have questions at your pre-release, always remember to call a judge.
Yes.
All right, so now we've got questions from listeners who have had, some burning issues to ask Judge Rob about related to Theros Beyond Death. He's not a doctor.
It's true.
And we are not a medical podcast.
That was
Yeah.
that was going to be my
So-
objection. It was like I can't solve all your burning issues.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you've already answered some of them on the
Yeah.
show, but the ones you haven't, we're going to go through.
Yeah.
them.
All right. Chuck asks, can cards like Cling to Dust be used in response to opponents trying to cast cards with Escape? Or does the escaped card go on the stack when the cost is paid, removing it from the graveyard, so
Yep.
not targetable?
Yeah, I forgot to bring this up heavily with Escape. There's enough going on. Escape is paying a cost. If you have priority and the ability to cast a spell, you pay the cost, which is exile some cards, move that to the stack, pay some mana. Your opponent can't respond in the middle of that. Just like they can't tap your land you're trying to tap for mana in the middle of you casting a spell. They can't remove those cards that you're using to pay for Escape in the middle of you trying to pay for Escape.
Okay.
And so then it's outside of the graveyard, and they can't exile it with Erebos's intervention or
Yeah. So the card with Escape is like on the stack once you've used it.
yes, once you
All
start
right.
casting it.
Can you explain how the new Thassa and Master of Waves combo doesn't kill the elementals?
Yeah, so Thassa, Deep Dwelling. Her relevant thing, as I mentioned, she's like the flicker. She says at the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature you control, then return the card to the battlefield under your control. That's all one ability. It does all of its text. you'll see sometimes judges will wear a shirt or say a thing, lightning bolts don't kill creatures, state-based actions kill creatures. Lightning bolt has never killed a creature in its life. You think it does. But what it does is it marks some damage on the creature, and then the caretaker game comes by and goes, you got too much damage marked on you. I'm gonna take out the trash. So the state-based actions are checked at specific times. They're checked any time a player would get priority. So they're checked after something resolves and before a player gets the chance to cast spells, after things happen. And there's no state-based action check in the middle of Thassa's Deep Dwelling's triggered ability. She does the whole thing, Master leaves and comes back, and he's not there, or he's not gone at a time when we check to see the toughness of creatures.
The elementals were like, is Dad home?
Yeah, they're like...
They didn't know he left.
He was...
He just walked out. He walked into his office real quick and walked right back out before you even noticed. So you didn't even miss him.
And he brought back more elementals with him.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, Brendan asks, Eidolon of Obstruction's ability does what exactly?
So, Eidolon of Obstruction. White and 1, enchantment creature spirit. It's a 2/1 with first strike. And loyalty abilities of planeswalkers your opponents control cost 1 mana more to activate. So loyalty abilities are any of the plus or minus abilities in planeswalkers. They enter with some number of loyalty counters, and then they add or remove loyalty counters as a cost to activate their abilities. Eidolon of Obstruction makes you pay in order to activate those abilities in addition to what you're already paying.
Dang.
And it doesn't change the timing on them. It doesn't do anything else except force you to pay 1 mana per loyalty activation, which frankly is not that big of a tax. Like this
Rob's over it.
Yeah, I'm like, I like death and taxes type creatures, but this is not that punishing to planeswalker players.
No.
Like,
it's barely doing anything.
Yeah.
All right.
Do tokens count towards devotion count?
Maybe. So if a token is a copy of something, it copies all the characteristics of that object. So if you have a card that says make a token copy of that thing, the token copy gets the mana cost of the object.
Most infamously, in the first round of Theros, there was Packrat from Ravnica.
Right. And Packrat tokens are copies of Packrat.
Yes.
And so they would have a black mana symbol because they were copies. If they're just made by a card, so if something produces like a 1/1 soldier token, that doesn't have a mana cost on it by default. So usually not, but occasionally so.
Fossa asks, can you kill Haktos with Erebos's or Perforos's intervention?
Oh, good question.
Sometimes. So Erebos's intervention, the thing that we care about is black X. Choose 1 target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. You gain X life. That's the mode that we care about. It's a modal spell. You choose which of the 2 modes to do. If you line Haktos up, protection does 4 things. It says it can't be damaged by, it can't be enchanted or equipped by, it can't be blocked by, and it can't be targeted by things with that quality.
Det is what we use to remember that.
And so the Det acronym tells you, well, Erebos' intervention wants to target him. And so if you pick a number that he doesn't have protection from, you can kill him with Erebos' intervention. Black and 1 has a converted mana cost of 2. If he doesn't have protection from 2, Erebos' intervention can get him there.
All right.
If you want to pick, if for some reason he's got a bunch of toughness because you've managed to pump him up, it's possible that Erebos' intervention might not be able to line up to that toughness in order to deal him enough to kill him. Usually Erebos' intervention will be able to get him because you'll just, either black and 2 or black and 3 or black and 1 will line up to his number.
Yeah.
Speaking of Erebos, can I use Erebos' ability to turn off its devotion to dodge creature-based removal?
Yes. So Erebos, bleak-hearted. He has this. He's got the gods. You need at least 5 devotion thing and to be a creature. Black and 1 sacrifice another creature. Target creature gets -2/-1 at the end of turn. So if you're sacrificing something that brings him down under the devotion number, he'll stop being a creature at instant speed, just in the middle of other things. Which
Hey, I was in the middle of stuff.
Peace. I'm not a creature anymore.
Yeah, he's like, you can't hurt me. All right.
Oh, okay.
And you can also, a funny thing that you can do with him is you can target him with his own ability, and he can stop being a creature, which will counter that ability.
Yeah.
Because he says sacrifice another creature. Target creature gets -2/-1 until end of turn. So you target him with his own ability, sacrifice the creature to pay the cost, and then the ability gets countered. Or not countered, it fails to resolve because he isn't a creature at the time when it checks.
So if you really just want to have a party just doing whatever
Yep.
over on your side of the battlefield.
Oh, Erebos.
This is going to make clicks on Magic Online and Arena real weird, I think, because you'll be able to click on him with his own ability. Be careful with that.
May asks, if a creature has an activated ability with a colored mana symbol, for instance, Clan Guildmage, does that count to your devotion?
No. Only the mana costs on cards. The stuff that's printed in the upper right counts towards devotion.
All right, I've got a weird one for you, Rob. If my Smuggler's Copter is enchanted with Awaken Artifact, which is the giant... No, that's in Soul Artifact, the giant scissors.
Yeah.
Is Awaken Artifact a different card?
No, I think they mean in Soul Artifact.
Okay. And it dies and is exiled by my Nightmare Shepherd. Is that a card?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
one of the new cards in the set. That also has a bunch of... That's one of the things that can copy... That can make copy tokens in the set.
The question is the token a creature, just a Smuggler's Copter, or something else?
It's going to be... So, a Nightmare Shepherd, we could actually probably build this in this set because there's a vehicle in this set which would behave pretty much the same way. So Nightmare Shepherd is black 2 for an enchantment creature demon, flying. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1, and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. So it's a token that is a copy. It copies all the base characteristics of the card with 2 exceptions. It adds a type if that thing's a creature, and it sets a power and toughness. This does interact really strange with vehicles, and I didn't think about that. So it sets a power and toughness. That vehicle now has that power toughness in the lower right-hand corner. If you crew the vehicle, you get a 1/1. And when you crew it, it'll turn into a nightmare. But while it's not crewed, it's an unanimated vehicle because that's the base characteristics of the object. And it's not a nightmare because vehicles don't have creature types.
Oh my god.
Sure, great.
Yep.
All right.
There's vehicle in this set. That's going to come up. Wow.
There's somebody here in our Facebook Messenger asking, Judge Rob, why are you so handsome and well-read? And it's from somebody named Rob. Interesting.
Yeah.
Who could it be?
So the answer is probably good upbringing. I blame my parents. The good genes for the handsomeness, and my mom encouraged me to read from a young age.
Oh, that's great. That's really great.
Really nice.
But then we have flavor questions like, how is Clothes? How do you say it? Clothis?
I pronounce it like I'd be pronouncing Clotho, so I said Clothes.
Okay, Clothes. How is Clothes both the representation of destiny and still red-green? And how is your agent, Calyx, white-green? And how did an artificial creature, Calyx, get a spark when similar beings like angels and demons cannot be made with one?
Yeah, so the last chunk of that, I don't know, and I disagree with it. Green being destiny is fine. Like green is the color of destiny.
Did you just decide this or what?
Wow.
No, green is about nature, the natural order, and following the path that's laid out for you.
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
And so having that be destiny is like, yeah, this is the thing that's going to happen.
That's legit.
And if I was choosing a 3-color combination for the 3 different fates, it would actually probably be green, red, blue, right?
Yeah.
What about black though?
What tie does black have to fate philosophically?
Bad.
Well, but you could.
Bad fate.
Bad fate.
Like black white, I could see like an argument for black white being like karma.
Right.
Like
and
that
then
type of
I think
fate.
Triad of Fates was a black white card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so,
it was.
so you could make the argument that direction, but also you can just make the argument when you look at the world being correct and fit into the natural order of things. That's green. That's what green does.
Okay.
And then
You've convinced
me. Red is about free will, which makes it really interesting. I don't know why red is tucked in there, except that they didn't have a green-red god because they've killed 2 of them now. One of them way off stage before everything started.
Yeah. All right.
But, yeah.
So if you have questions that Rob did not answer on our episode, feel free to head to the YouTube video of this podcast, which will be live on Thursday of this week before the pre-release. Rob stops by for how long do you stop?
Usually about a week.
A week to check and make sure people still don't have questions.
Yep.
So you can post them there on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/goodluckhighfive.
And if I goofed anything up, let me know. I'll reply in the YouTube comments if I agree or disagree or have
Yeah.
whatever information. I've definitely corrected myself multiple times in them. Sometimes I make mistakes. I'm human like everybody else, despite my upbringing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, everybody, it's time for that moment you have all been waiting with bated breath for.
Yeah. It's
Cutest
true.
card and grossest card.
Grossest card is Aspect of Lamprey. No further questions.
I mean, honestly, that's all we have to say about
No,
that.
that's all we have to say about
Yep.
that.
There you
Never
go.
need to look at it again.
Yep. And
We're good.
And then
We're
you,
chill.
And then you just won't host any kind of press junket about
No.
your info on this for 301 days.
No, it's
No.
fine.
Yep.
It's good. It's done. All right.
There's, but in contrast, a bunch of cute cards from this set.
Yeah.
So we have several runners up. I just saw Gift of Strength, which is a weird, strange combination of a bat, an anteater, and a raccoon, painted by Winona Nelson, which I guess you could say was cute if it wasn't so angry.
Yeah.
Galia of the Endless Dance, definitely cute. In the spirit of Tappy Toe Claws, it's just like, yeah, we've got to
Yeah.
put that on this list.
She's so happy.
She's great.
She's having a great time.
Moss Viper, we got to put on this list, which my reaction when I saw it for the first time the other day was like, oh, cute. It's a little 1/1 Death Touch snack. And he's just like, hey, would you like to be Death Touch?
Oh.
Would you like to be Death Touch?
He already death touched somebody.
and now
Oh,
he's
yeah,
a
he did.
homeowner.
Yeah.
He's got their helmet.
Oh, this snake is a homeowner.
Oh, he's
Makes
so
him even more
cute.
cute.
But for me, cuteness sometimes supersedes just, your cute looks, but also what you're doing. And your actions make you cute. And in this case, Vexing Gull wins cutest card for Theros Beyond Death because not only is a cute little burb, it also steal fish. Him steal fish.
Yep. You stole my fish.
The best part of this art is the guy in the boat who's so mad.
Curse you, Vexing Gull!
He's so mad.
He's so mad, but look how much fish he has, and he's just mad at this one little
Exactly.
fish. And this fish's look at its face is mischievous. It knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm getting a free ride to escape to get eaten. Yeah.
So it knows that it's steal fish, but him don't care.
No.
Him cutest card.
Makes sense to me.
Him fish.
Everybody, we gotta say thank you to Ultra Pro, another one of our amazing
Yes.
sponsors.
With these beautiful green and gold dice.
I've got
Look
some
at them.
sweet D20s here.
So many.
Are you a Packers fan? Consider getting D20s in your
No.
favorite colors.
Consider getting out of town.
I just
Well-
realized that as I picked these up.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I
they-
actually
I
don't
mean-
even care about football, but
Well, I mean, the Packers are going to the playoffs and the Vikings aren't, right?
Yeah,
Oh.
that is
Yeah.
accurate.
So,
I
like,
believe you.
yep.
What two colors did you pull?
These ones are missing.
What do you mean they're missing?
Oh, I don't know. They like
just fell out of their little holes.
they fell out of the little packages. Those ones are kind of like burnished bronze.
Okay, bronze
Ooh, these ones are bright green.
and green.
Look, here's purple ones.
Okay.
They're
Oh,
so pretty.
beautiful.
Every
Yeah.
time that we send people stuff, I pick dice that I feel. I read their name and then I feel
You feel what color
what
dice
color
they want.
dice they
You,
want.
you,
Yeah.
you give them dice to match their chakras.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
I'm reading their energy from afar.
Yeah, and
Just
these,
like Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh boy.
that's a whole nother podcast right there.
How are you like Gwyneth Paltrow?
So yeah, a bunch of awesome heavy metal dice. Bring these to your pre-release, your F&M going to a Grand
Yes.
Prix. They're so cool. Everybody always admires them when I
Yep.
bring them out.
So many. Oh, we have more guild sleeves.
Oh, I love
We
the
have
guild
isn't
sleeves.
ones. We haven't had isn't ones in forever. I love these guild sleeves.
Represent your guild. Even though we're not on Ravnica, you can still rep your guild.
Well, and
Who's Orzhov?
like, who
Like-
do we know that's Orzhov?
Think of
Accountants.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, there we go. Think. Can you think of a celebrity that you would emotionally say is Orzhov?
Ooh.
Tom Cruise?
Wow, that
Oh,
was
interesting.
great pull.
I was
okay.
gonna say Susie Orman.
All right, fair enough. We found them.
Well, there you go, everybody. That's this episode of Good Luck High Five. Thank you so much to Judge Rob for coming on
Yeah, you're welcome.
and giving us a lowdown on Theros Beyond Death. We hope you have an awesome time
Yeah.
at your pre-release, or if you're just playing on Arena or Magic Online, that you have
Yep.
a great time too. Please send us photos of your pools. We love to see your pools, cool
Yeah.
stuff that you pulled, neat interactions that you got. All you have to do is tweet at us at GLHF Magic, and it will surprise and delight us, no doubt, while we're playing our own pre-releases for Theros Beyond Death. Remember to challenge me on Tuesday, Meghan on Thursday, and check out our Theros early access stream on Wednesday on twitch.tv/GLHF Magic, and sign up on our Arena Discord if you're a patron to play us in any format of your choosing.
Any format?
That's right. You can even invent one.
So Kamigawa block tiny leaders is acceptable?